Welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. It's quickly becoming clear that the new edition of Horus Heresy includes some significant changes. Chief of these is a general rebalancing of units across the factions. In today's video, I'm keen to look at the biggest winners and losers within the generic Astartes army list, 5 of each, and how their ability and role has changed within the 3rd edition. But before we get into it, a quick reminder that the Blackbriar Gaming Discord and Patreon are now live. Check the video descriptions below for links to both. As always, a huge thank you to my Patreon members. You're the ones making this channel possible. Okay, back to it. We're going to go a 1 loser, then 1 winner, repeat. That way we'll end on a positive, which you'll know is what I'm all about. There are plenty of winners within the Astartes army list. A lot of this is due to the way the 3rd edition works, mostly through the overhaul of how victory points are scored, the new survivability of vehicles, and what looks like a real attempt to balance weapons. The losers list was actually pretty hard to put together. I think a bunch of units have certainly changed, both in function and role, but overall they're looking pretty good. Yes, there are issues, potentially unforgivable issues with war gear options being taken away, noting of course we have just received that Legacies document, but there might still be something there. But that aside, the generic Astartes units, not Legion specific, are all looking pretty good. With that all covered, let's get into the units. To start, the first loser. Assault squads. Now, this may end up being a controversial call, but any close combat units that can deep strike are going to be worse off in this edition. Assault squads may be okay because they're relatively cheap, but those more expensive deep strike assault focus units, with only a 3+ save that can't go in transports, may find themselves having a hard time on the table. Don't forget, you can only deep strike a single unit per turn now, so you're not going to be achieving any kind of mass in this way. On top of this, we don't have night fighting rules anymore, so slogging it up the table will have its own challenges. Certain Legion rules and a good amount of terrain will overcome this, but I'm worried for the survivability of the good old Assault Squad, and its ability to actually make it into combat. I believe you're also going to be getting less attacks in combat, because I think, and I could be wrong, but I think the +1 attack for charging is now gone. If I'm wrong, you know where to let me know. Added to this, you're not catching and killing units when they flee. There's so many things going against the poor Assault Squad. Now, there are a few things that did go their way. Vanguard 2 in particular is pretty nice, but without line, even if you kill a bunch of tactical marines on an objective, if they happen not to run, they could still continue to hold the objective with a higher tactical strength. You want your Vanguard units to be really decisive, and I'm just not sure Assault Squads will achieve this. Not in the amount of units you're going to actually finally get into combat. Now, for a winner, I could be lazy and just say tanks in general, but in particular I think the Kratos and the Vindicator are worth talking to. The Kratos is now a beast. It's 20 points cheaper, has double the hull points it used to for a whopping 10, and of course will never again be one-shotted by a sneaky laser destroyer. But the real power comes from the new weapon profiles. The Battle Cannon, Volkite Cardinal, there we go, and Melter Blast Gun all do serious work. Each has a role to play, but I think the Melter Blast Gun will be particularly popular as it gets its Melter bonus all the way out to 24 inches, which is really, really good. Maybe so good that it's a mistake. We'll wait and see. An added bonus is that the Kratos has the stable subtype, which is quite rare amongst non-super heavy vehicles. I believe the Storm Eagle is the only other vehicle we see with it in the Liber Astartes book. This means that the Kratos always gets the weapon benefits of remaining stationary and can fire its weapons at multiple units without the usual snapshot requirements. This tank is good. It is very good. The Vindicator, a staple of 1st edition, was almost unusable in 2nd edition. Well, Vindication is back on the menu. While the tank got more expensive, up to 140 points, its weapons are now far better. The Demolisher Cannon is now a Strength 12 monster with damage 3 that goes up to damage 6 if the vehicle remains stationary, thanks to the new Ordnance rule. It has Breaching 5+ and Stun 1, but the real reason this gun got so much better is due to the new Blast rules, which I'm a huge fan of. You now roll to hit with blast weapons using your ballistic skill, much like any weapon. If you hit, the template doesn't move, it goes exactly where you want it to. If you don't, it then scatters, with still a good chance, in the case of the Demolisher Cannon, of still landing on its target. This high strength of 12 is going to be very relevant in the new game, as you're generally going to need a way to reliably penetrate armor 14, and melters are no longer going to get you there. The Magna Laser Destroyer is also looking excellent, with 2 shots and a very decent 36 inches. Strength 10 that is functionally Strength 11 against vehicles due to the new Armorbane rule, damage 2 standard, but with the Ordnance rule taking up to damage 4 when stationary. With some spicy rolling, there's a chance you can one-shot a Land Raider with this weapon. It's not a great chance, but it's there. Next up, our second loser, and for this I'm just going to say a bunch of consoles. The 2 in particular that I want to talk about are Chaplain and Moritats. So Chaplains essentially are just really vanilla now. They don't have stubborn, they don't give units hatred. The idea is they have a higher cool and leadership statistic, and that's about it. They also lost a bunch of war gear options, but we may see legacies bringing those back. But essentially, they're just not interesting anymore. They're not as fun. The loss here is probably from a flavors perspective. I think the high cool will still be really useful, but you're not going to feel great about it. Moritats, in particular, lost some rules around their shooting. They will get less shots in general, and at least within the Liber, do not have access to disintegrator pistols. Once again, though, the Legacies document, which just dropped about an hour or 2 ago, may fix this. Other consoles, such as the Armistice, Mortificator, Forge Lord, Primus Medicae, Delegatus, Pathfinder, they definitely lost out because they simply don't exist in the Libers anymore. But they are in the Legacies document, but not getting a proper army list entry is kind of rough. There's not much more to say here. Consoles lost a lot of options from a flavor and war gift perspective. They lost a lot of special rules. They just lost out. I think consoles will be a sore point for a bunch of players going from 2nd to 3rd edition, with Centurions becoming more popular simply because they open up your army lists. You get the idea. Alright, on to our second winner, Cataphracti Terminators. Gaining Toughness 5 and the Vanguard 3 special rule, these often overlooked lads have a new bright life breathed into them in 3rd edition. Toughness of 5 is going to come in handy for performing their main role, which is soaking up small arms fire while charging into line units on objectives, weathering all those strength 4 hits before swinging back with their power fists. Why is this their main role? Well, Vanguard 3 means you're scoring victory points, 3 to be precise, when shifting units off objectives. I believe that the better armies in Heresy 3rd edition will achieve a balance of line and Vanguard units. And as generic Astartes units go, there aren't many better Vanguard units than Cataphracti Terminators. The infantry heavy rule has changed, so you've lost rerolls of armor saves against template weapons, but received a +1 to your cool characteristic to assist in avoiding tactical statuses, which I think will be more useful across the board. These chunky boys are still very slow, so you're going to need a transport. Luckily, Land Raiders aren't just ticking time bombs in 3rd edition, and will usually make it across the table to deliver your Terminators. All in all, a Terminator unit in a Land Raider is a much scarier proposition in the new edition, and I think we'll see them in a lot of armies. Saying that, armies that can take Legion-specific Terminator units often will, for that added flavour, and good on them. The third loser, Rhino Transports. This is another controversial one and maybe off the mark. They're armor 12 on the front now, which is a significant improvement. On top of that, we have extra hull points and reworked vehicle rules, which make them a lot tougher. And units can now disembark and assault from a Rhino, even if they're making a disordered charge. So, why are Rhinos in the loser list? Well, they're now 60 points base. That's almost double what they were in 2nd edition, and a disappointing way to give up First Strike, which will be worth substantial points in some missions. I would have loved to see Rhinos with the expendable 1 or 2 special rule. This just seems like a really obvious move to me. Now, I could be wrong on this one, time will tell, but Rhinos weren't great in 2nd edition, and I don't think they're going to be great in 3rd edition. So, They're kind of staying a loser, as opposed to becoming one. Once again, if I'm wrong about any of these, I reckon it might be this one, but I have to at least be a bit spicy, otherwise no one's going to harass me in the comments. And then, what's the point? Okay, the third winner, and I'm pretty excited for this one, Seeker Squads. With the once feared Nemesis Bolter wielding Recon Marines receiving a decent balancing, I think we'll see Seeker Squads finding a place on the battlefields of 3rd edition. Kraken Bolters have me very interested, especially when they're being fired at Ballistic Skill 5. These two-shot weapons can provide a variety of effects. You can choose either Panic 1, Breaching 4+, or Suppressive 2 every turn that you shoot these weapons. Add Precision 4+ to the Seekers, and you've got an infiltrating unit that can either assassinate characters and sergeants and models carrying particular weapons, they can send enemy units fleeing, or diminish the effectiveness of your opponent's shooting-focused units. Don't forget that you only need to successfully wound, not kill, enemy models to cause tactical status checks in the new edition. Unlike Recon Marines, who are notably more expensive when equipped with Nemesis Bolters, Seekers will also be scoring full points on objectives. Infiltrating units will be key to scoring those early turn midfield objectives, and Seekers seem like an optimal way to do it, being very effective in small units of 5 at only 105 points. Your opponent will have to deal with this unit, or they will continue to be a nuisance throughout the game. Fourth loser, we have the Scimitar Jetbike Squadrons, and this one hurts me in my heart. Now, they can't hold objectives due to the cavalry type, and they don't have the Vanguard special rule to score victory points when destroying and routing units on objectives. They lost a bunch of special rules and are now susceptible to tactical statuses. There's potentially a use for them, deep striking with multi-melters to delete dreadnoughts or lighter vehicles, but multi-melters are no longer twin-linked and don't roll 2 dice for armor penetration. I say lighter vehicles because they're going to struggle against armor 14, where they'll need at least 5s on their armor penetration rolls to do anything at all. We're talking 10 jetbikes, all with multi-melters at 455 points to really get some penetrating hits through on a Land Raider to do enough work. Units' ability to score victory points will be so important in this edition, and I'm just not sure there will be a place for jetbikes. That said, they look really cool and are really fun, so I will of course be running some in my future White Scars army. But the viability of jetbike heavy armies is gone for now. Hopefully we'll see something in a future journal that brings it back. I think giving jetbikes Vanguard 2, for instance, even Vanguard 1, I'll take anything, would be a step in the right direction. A final nail in the coffin for the poor old jetbikes is that it appears there are no characters in the Liber Astartes that can ride them. Squads of jetbikes that were once used to deliver a combat monster of a character into an opponent's backline simply won't exist in your standard Liber. But once again, we've just seen the Legacies document, and they are coming back. Thank goodness I wrote this before the Legacies document dropped, and it feels good to be able to kind of correct myself as I go on that one there. Now, jetbikes will probably be relegated to the flanks or the rear of the battlefield, providing fire support, a role that may be fitting, but one that is probably achieved better by other units. With all that in mind, it's probably the perfect time for our fourth winner, Outrider Squadrons. Largely written off in 2nd edition as inferior in every way when compared to jetbike squadrons, the humble Outriders have seen a decent improvement and may in fact end up being the preferred choice. The elephant in the room is that they've lost access to melter guns and flamers, which is excusable. I'm not sure that we will see that come through in the Liber, their ability to take those options. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but let's park that one for now. The greatest improvement for Outriders is moving from 1 wound to 2. How big of an improvement is this in a world with damage to weapons? We'll have to wait and see. But certainly against small arms fire, this will be a significant boost. Vanguard 1 sure is nice, but nothing overly exciting, but it's better than what the jetbikes are getting. But it's the combination of Outflank, Implacable Advance, and Firestorm that I think is just a bit spicy. Outflank, of course, lets Outriders come in from reserves, funnily enough, on the flanks of the battlefield, outside of an opponent's deployment zone. Outflank has really gained in value now that Deep Strike has been limited to a single unit per turn, so don't underestimate this alternate method of entering the battlefield. The unit can't charge while doing this, but they can fire their twin plasma guns, which, for some reason, have a better breaching value than their regular counterparts, breaching on a 4+ when overloaded. They are expensive, but it makes the unit hit really hard, especially against enemy units that you catch in the open. Those elite ones with those cheeky 2+ armor saves. Implacable Advance means you can fire those twin plasma guns in volley attacks, which happen when you charge or are charged. Firestorm lets you fire volley attacks at full ballistic skill, so whether this unit is charging or getting charged, you're getting whole extra shooting phases in both your turn and your opponent's turn, potentially, depending on what's happening on the battlefield. Outriders provide a flexible counter unit that can come on where you need them to deal with those pesky, high toughness, or 2+ armor save units that your tactical squads simply cannot. For our final loser, we have the unit that probably lost the most. Contemptor Dreadnoughts. This is a unit that lost a lot in this edition, and not just Contemptor Dreadnoughts, but really Dreadnoughts across the board. Honestly though, I'm kind of okay with it. I think the biggest change is that weapon skill and ballistic skill are down to 4. The impact of this cannot be overstated. The weapon skill in particular made Dreadnoughts highly survivable in combat. Dreadnoughts can now be affected by tactical statuses, though with a leadership of 12 and a cool of 10, this isn't going to be that common. With many weapons in the new edition doing multiple damage, melters being of particular note, Dreadnoughts are far more vulnerable to range fire. It used to be that firing 20 las cannons at a Contemptor Dreadnought was the best way to take it down, and it took that many to do it. Well, no longer. 4 cheeky melters, not even multi-melters, 4 cheeky little melters from a regular support squad within 6 inches of that Contemptor Dreadnought are going to burst it wide open. Dreadnoughts will no longer be invincible giants striding across the battlefield without a care in the world, and I don't think that's a terrible thing. Alrighty, the last winner is the Storm Eagle. Now, to clarify, these aren't in any particular order. The last winner is the Storm Eagle, but that doesn't mean it wins the most. Let's talk about it. Flyers work rather differently in this edition. Coming in from reserve and generally returning straight to it, all within your turn. Now, there's pros and cons to this, but I specifically want to talk about the way that flyer transports have changed and what this means for the Storm Eagle. The Storm Eagle is an Armor 12 flyer, now with 6 hull points and a transport capacity of 16. Its base weapons aren't anything to write home about, and it gets pretty expensive to start upgrading them, but it's the Assault Vehicle special rule and the way aerial reserves work that I find particularly intriguing. If you absolutely need to safely deliver 16 models worth of infantry, noting bulky comes into that, into close combat with your opponent's forces, I think the Storm Eagle might be the best way to do it. The rules around aerial reserves and drop missions are pretty complex, but the gist is that your Storm Eagle comes blasting onto the table, and your opponent has a single chance to blow it out of the sky with an intercept advance reaction. However, these reactions are made at snapshots, and vehicles can only fire defensive weapons when doing so. Even something like the Arachne Quad Accelerator platform, with its Quad Accelerator autocannon, purpose-built for this role, is only going to take an average of 3 hull points from your tough-as-nails flyer. A 10-strong heavy support squad with las cannons might be lucky to take 5 hull points. But your Storm Eagle is generally getting through and putting your choppy lads at least within 18 inches of your board edge, and they can then assault from there. Can it go further? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't dived deep into the rules on that one. I don't even know if we have them yet, but 18 inches seems to be the movement value. You hop out and then can assault. So it won't necessarily be able to get your troops into the back line of the opponent's battlefield, but at least well into the middle of the table. On top of this natural ability to evade incoming fire, flyers ignore all tactical statuses, which is nice, but they do lose a hull point for every glancing hit instead, which is less nice. I have, however, taken this into consideration for the numbers I just mentioned before, but these things are going to survive. No longer does your Storm Eagle have to go into some kind of hover mode to disgorge its passengers into the enemy forces. The whole system is much smoother and makes a whole package a lot more survivable and a lot more effective. Now, Worst case, it gets shot down. In 2nd edition, generally that meant death for the squad inside, for all of them. Now in 3rd edition, you're rolling a dice for each model inside and only taking wounds on a roll of 1. I much prefer those odds. Your Storm Eagle does also get to shoot when making a drop mission, but only defensive weapons, which means some heavy bolter shots. Not very exciting. But in future turns, when/if your Storm Eagle returns to the battlefield, you can instead conduct strike missions and strafing runs, harassing your opponent's troops and lighter vehicles. Storm Eagles are way better, and I can't wait to see one come out in plastic, because I sure as not just do not have the patience for putting a resin one of these together and wouldn't recommend it on my worst enemy. So that is the units I wanted to talk about. 5 winners, 5 losers from the generic Astartes army list for the new edition, as well as a discussion around how a bunch of the new rules work. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts on these. Do you disagree vehemently with anything I've put here, or do you have some additions that you'd like to talk about? Importantly, make sure to keep rolling your dice and getting hyped for Heresy.